Hello and welcome to Lore of the Cards, the series that looks to inform you of the lore hidden in your Hearthstone deck. Right, this is it. This is me desperately trying to do a shorter video that's under 5 minutes, and the best way to do that is to pick a card with next to no lore or background associated to it. So while flicking through potential episode candidates, I landed on Abusive Sergeant. In fact, this card has so little lore, I'm going to do two in one fell swoop, looking at a card that was requested of me early in the release of Kobolds and Catacombs, the Feral Gibberer. A weird pair to bring together, I know, but to be honest, I kind of just felt like it. Luca Zontini is behind the art for Abusive Sergeant, the artist responsible for 22 collectible cards, 4 uncollectible cards, the Life Tap Hero Power, 3 unique adventure cards, and a Tavern Brawl card. As well as creating art for franchises such as Warcraft and Magic, Zontini also paints some odd stylized designs as well, showing a great amount of range. The Sergeant himself is just a piece of art that was used for the now defunct Warcraft trading card game. But he is a human, so I suppose I could cover the lore behind that totally unimportant race in the Warcraft mythos in next to no time. Haha! No. The art was used not to represent an individual, but a piece of plate armour. In the card game, it could be used by Paladin and Warrior heroes, and was called the Onslaught Girdle. With the addition of Death Knights, another plate wearer, in Wrath of the Lich King, they too could wear the belt in World of Warcraft. By removing one of the armour's durability, players are able to imbue their hero's weapon with +1 attack that turn, a mechanic similar to the +2 attack the Sergeant gives to other minions. The Onslaught set would be the name of a Warrior's Tier 6 armour set, which could be obtained in the Burning Crusade expansion, but the Onslaught Girdle came before this. This epic quality belt was added to the game in vanilla World of Warcraft and would drop from the final boss of the Molten Core raid, Ragnaros. Comparing the in-game model to the art, it's clear Zontini was allowed to let his creativity shine through somewhat, as the art's design is far more spectacular than what the, at the time, limited game engine could put out. Despite not being a part of a tier set, Onslaught Girdle was considered at one point the most powerful belt in the game for DPS warriors and paladins, a huge upgrade on any before it. It was only bested with the release of the final raid of Classic WoW, Naxxramas 40. Even then, the belt's stats were still difficult to beat. Even with the release of Burning Crusade, those that had the belt didn't find themselves replacing it for some time, even taking it to the point of max level, which was 70. During my small amount of research, I even found a commenter on the belt's Wowhead page that found that early Wrath of the Lich King greens and uncommons were also bettered by the Onslaught Girdle. The Abusive Sergeant is not just the star of his own card, but is also depicted on a Whispers of the Old Gods Shaman card, Evolve. The Sergeant's long black hair and distinct armour betrays his previous existence, as he warps into some unknown horror. The tentacles that now sprout from his body hint that the Sergeant is either becoming a Faceless one, or like many other cards in the Old Gods, an enhanced version of himself, with tentacles covering his form. Perhaps even a tentacle-covered 2-cost like Nat the Darkfisher, Bilefin Tidehunter, Twisted Worgen, or your mum. Probably a bit late in the game for your mum jokes, isn't it? Ah well. The art for Feral Gibberer is by Anton Zemskov, an artist we looked at in greater detail for our rather long Fandral Staghelm episode. Producer of 17 collectible cards, 5 uncollectible cards, couple of adventure hero powers, a Tavern Brawl card, and of course, the terrifying Candlebeard. Let's get it out there and say it straight away. The Gibberer has no lore. It is a Hearthstone original and is a case of what the team refer to as top-down card design. They have a specific fantasy in mind and then design a card to capture that fantasy. With the Gibberer, they wanted a tiny, vicious, and adorable creature that would multiply when they attacked and swarmed their enemies. The Gibberer went through several stages of design. In its first iteration, these adorable creatures were more squat humanoids than balls of fluff. Even with these, we can see a common design aesthetic that carries over into the final Gibberer version. Most of them have large ears and they're all very fluffy. The second wave more closely resembles the final creation. In fact, number 1 looks like a rough sketch of the Gibberer. Again, there are common design elements. They are all now quite spherical creatures, having no real torso of which to speak of, and most of them only have 2 legs, only a couple having arms as well. The artist appears to be experimenting with shape. It's quite interesting how just the shape of the Gibberer's mouth and hair turn it into a female version of the species. With the final design selected, all that's left is to come up with a card composition, and we all know what they ended up going with there. Senior game designer Peter Whalen considers the Feral Gibberer to be the cutest card of the Kobolds and Catacombs set. The Gibberer's design, for me anyway, is reminiscent of one of the ammos in Oddworld's Stranger's Wrath. This thief bounty hunter would shoot living creatures from his crossbow when hunting his marks. First seen in the game Munch's Odyssey, these ravenous balls of fluff were a lot like the Gibberer, both in look and behaviour. While Fuzzles didn't multiply while they attacked, they would attack in swarms, covering their enemies in a blanket of brown fur, biting their larger foes until they finally collapsed. So, there you have it, the lore and I suppose more in this episode the background behind Abusive Sergeant and Feral Gibberer. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, like, share, subscribe and sign up for notifications. If you enjoyed the art, I've done my best to link the artists in the description below. To keep up to date with 6 Gamers, follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and for streams, Twitch. Until next time, happy Hearthstoning. Yeah, that was... Yep, still over 5 minutes.